Hello and welcome to Healthy Mourning in the Holidays. How we approach this during the holiday season, it's everything. And the reality is that it can be agonizing, the opportunities that appear, and it can be really comforting and supportive, the opportunities that appear. During the holidays, special opportunities appear for us to be able to step into our grief journey and be present to it. And so today we're going to talk about those opportunities and how we utilize those opportunities. My name is Maria Kliavkov, and I am the founder and the executive director of Healthy Mourning Revolution. And it's called a revolution because I want to revolutionize the way we think about our grief and mourning. I want to revolutionize the way that you approach your grief journey because we've been told so many things and we've been given so much misinformation about grief. And in this society where we tend to bury and carry our grief, we suffer so much more than what we need to, which is not to say that it's not painful and it's not to say that we're not hurting, but it's about knowing how to work with the pain that's coming up, how to approach it, and how to recognize the grief symptoms, because often the symptoms themselves are not telling us that this is grief, and we don't recognize it as grief. So, in the holidays, like any anniversary or birthday or any special time, it provides us an opportunity to either come close into the grief, or it's another opportunity to avoid it and to bury it and to carry it. And so I'm here to help support us all in walking through our grief journey with ease and grace. And that's what the revolution is about. It's about teaching us how to convert our grief to mourning so that we can move through the grief with ease and grace. And the holidays provide so many opportunities, and they're golden opportunities for us to really embrace the grief journey. And sometimes the opportunities are just beyond brilliant. And sometimes the opportunities are just absolutely agonizing. And the key for us is to be willing to be present to whatever's coming up for us. So I see Donna's here. I see Alexis is here. Please, if you're joining us live, I only see a little eye icon there. So feel free to just put a notice in the comments box. And if you have any questions, let me know. I know some people sent me questions because they wouldn't be able to be here live, but they'll be viewing this later on. And so I'll be answering those questions as well. And I'm so grateful for the questions because it helps me to know exactly what you most need to hear here. So let's talk about the holidays as this brilliant and sometimes agonizing opportunity to convert our grief to mourning. What do we mean by that? Well, really, what we mean is that our grief is inside of us, it's our internal experience of the loss that we've had. Mourning is the external expression. And when we're able to convert our grief to mourning, convert what's going on the inside into an external expression, we're able to release it from our body. We're able to release it from our mind so that that hamster wheel that we're sometimes on, that we just keep moving on, gets relieved. And we get a little bit of release and relaxation. The grief that's being held inside of us can be all manner of hurt and pain, um, or it can be just memories that keep repeating again and again. Or it can show up in our physical world. It can show up as back pain or tight muscles or heavy weights that feel like they're on our chest and we just can't even breathe, much less get up and stand up when we're lying in bed. So there's all manner of symptoms that show up. And if we don't convert our grief to mourning, what happens is these symptoms can harden over time. As opposed to when we address them, when we really listen into what these symptoms are asking us to do, then we can release it. And so in the holidays, because the holiday is such a natural prompter to memories, and on Monday I talked about memories of tables that have gone by, relatives, my mother's Thanksgiving table, my godparents who were present at that dinner table. And it's painful when I realize that that dinner table will never be again in that way, right? If I'm not willing to approach the pain, go into the pain, if I'm not willing to be present with the pain, then what starts to happen is that pain actually takes over. And it's my pushing back against the pain, it's my resistance against the pain that's actually causing more pain. The Buddha used to say, and it's a famous saying, that life is painful, but it's we who make suffering happen. And the suffering is the fight against the pain. The grief journey does take us to some painful places. And when we know how to convert that grief, that pain that we're feeling on the inside, into active mourning, when we allow the tears to release, when we allow the stories to come forward, when we allow whatever the invitation is in this moment to be present to what's going on, that's when we feel the release and the relief. That's when the symptoms of grief start to soften because the mourning has occurred. And so the invitation is for you to step into that mourning place in an authentic way. So how do we do this? And that was one of the questions that I got, is how do you actually do this conversion thing? Well, one of the things you need to do is you need to be present to what's really happening. Most of us avoid our grief in ways that we don't even recognize that we're doing it. And so, what we're being invited to is we're invited to be present to what's happening in this moment. So, in a holiday experience, I might be sitting around a dinner table, or I might be sitting at a Christmas tree or by a menorah, and I'm looking around at the family members, and suddenly this anger starts coming up inside of me that my beloved should be here. I want them here, and I'm angry that they're not here. That is a very real grief moment, that moment of anger. So pretending that the anger is not there is not going to get us to where we want to go. Pushing it away and pretending it's not there and distracting ourselves by going to watch a movie or starting up a conversation and saying something that has nothing to do with what's going on my insides creates kind of like a schism. Right now, I'm being happy for you, and I've buried what's going on for me. The flip side is also true. For me to be angry and then to just lash out that anger, that's not going to work either. All it's really going to do is it's going to alienate my family. Um, it's not going to support what needs to come forward here. And what needs to come forward here is my willingness to say that I'm angry without being in the emotion of the anger. And that takes a little being present and being willing to speak what's going on for me right now. So we want to be present to what's going on. So when, and again, anger is just what's coming up right now. If you have something else, let me know and we can walk our way through it, because I see some of you putting notes on the comment section, and that's great. Um, what we want to do is we want to be present to, okay, that is anger that's coming up. I'm angry that my loved one isn't here. And maybe I'm even a little curious about who else in this room might be feeling the same way. And maybe what I can start to do is be willing to give my grief voice. Most of us are not willing to give our grief voice, but that's the conversion to mourning. We convert it to mourning when we're willing to give it voice and let it express through our voice what's going on. And it doesn't have to be anger, it can be sadness. We can say, I'm loving being here with all of you. I'm really appreciating this moment of being here with all of you, but I'm just so sad right now. I'm just feeling this wave of sadness. And if we can think of it as a wave as opposed to, if I go into my sadness, and this is kind of the false belief that happens. We have a false belief that if I go into my sadness, I'm going to get stuck in the sadness. The reality is, if I fight against my sadness, if I pretend that it's not there, then I will get stuck in my sadness because it's got nowhere to go. Then it gets stuck inside of me. But if I'm willing to speak my sadness, if I'm willing to speak my anger, if I'm willing to speak my fear, whatever is coming up, it's all fair game, right? If I'm willing to speak it out loud, I might discover that I'm not the only one in the room feeling this way. And here's a little secret about grief. I can guarantee you're not the only one in the room feeling that way if there are other people in the room who also loved the person who died. And in families, it's more than likely that there is more than one person in that room, right? And if there are tears that are expressing as I say this, I can actually say to the people in the room, I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable with the tears. So we're not apologizing for the tears, but we're sorry if you're not comfortable with the tears. I just really needed to share this, and thank you for letting me say it. Thank you for letting me say the piece. And what you're doing is you're creating a safe space where other people can share, right? For me, when I say something in a group of people, particularly with my family, where I may not be sure how it's going to land, I just own that this is what's true for me, and I'm just really grateful that all of you are willing to listen to me as I'm saying this, because this is just true for me right now. And I don't lock myself into being that way for the rest of the evening. It's just for right now, and I'm not afraid of my tears. I think my tears are honoring my loved one, you know? And so I can say things like, this was my mom's favorite food, or this was dad's favorite food. And do you remember the time when? And so we start talking about our loved one. Most people in the room are most afraid that their loved one's name will be forgotten. And so the more we can say that name, the more we can share the memories, the lighter the mood becomes. And everybody who's been kind of carrying this weight, it's kind of like walking in a mined field, right? And we don't know where the mines are, and so we're going to gently walk around each other. And other people I've heard it talked about as, we're walking on eggshells. We're not sure what we can and what we can't say. Well, you know what? The minute you burst that bubble, boy, I'm really mixing my metaphors right now. But the minute you burst that bubble, the minute you're willing to say, um, you know what? I'm really thinking about mom right now, or I'm really thinking about sis right now, and I'm really missing her. Anybody else feeling like that? You burst the bubble, and then you make it a safe space to start processing the grief by converting it to mourning. That's how we process grief, is by converting it to mourning. So I answered the question that was posed to me about anger and what do you do with anger. And I posed the question that was asked to me about how do you approach this in the first place. So the first place is always presencing yourself to your own grief experience, checking yourself to see, am I willing to give this voice? Am I willing to say what's going on? And being curious not only about what's going on for you, but what's going on for other people in the room. Because other people in the room may help you in understanding your own grief. If nobody's talking, then we can't have that possibility. The holidays provide us the space. If we are blessed to be in a part of the world where we can be with our loved ones in the same room, that's a really, really glorious opportunity. If it's a Zoom call and suddenly we're aware, because we're present, we're aware that something's just come up and it's brought up some emotion, some fear, some anxiety, some curiosity, whatever it is, are we willing to speak it? And if we're willing to speak it, can we get curious? And then we need some courage too, right? We need a little bit of courage. So, for those of you who are on with me live, can you just kind of give me a thumbs up or a yes? Let me know if this is resonating for you, if this is making sense for you. I'm just going to take a sip of water here because I'm getting a little dry. And I just want to say how grateful I am to have all of you here. It's wonderful to see you all here. So, here's the thing. What we want to do is we want to make sure that when we're saying we're present, it's about making a safe space within ourselves, a safe space within yourself, so that your grief can begin to speak to you. So if you haven't done this before now, if this is a new concept for you, you get to practice. For those of you in the United States, you've got a shorter timeline on this since Thanksgiving is tomorrow, right? But what I'm going to invite you to do is to get really present. And I see that we've got people here from Ireland. We've got someone here from England. We've got a number of people here from the States and Canada. So for those of you who this is an immediate concern because you've got Thanksgiving that's happening tomorrow, you check in with yourself and you say, you put your hand on your heart and you close your eyes and you take a deep breath and you say, what does my grief want me to know right now? And you just let it speak to you. What does your grief want you to know right now in this moment? Okay? That's how you begin to presence yourself to your grief. If you've not done it before, it just takes a little time. Your grief has been waiting this welcome. So remember, grief doesn't go away over time. That's the great myth of it, right? What happens over time is if we ignore our grief, then those symptoms harden over time. However, if we're willing to ask the grief what it wants us to know, grief is awaiting the welcome. And once it gets the welcome, then we can process it. So, for those of you who may have buried and carried grief, you may have grief that's lasted 5 years, 10 years, whatever the horizon line is. The great news is it's never too late to do catch up mourning. And catch up mourning begins with simply putting your hand on your heart, closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and getting really present with the grief and asking the grief, what do you want me to know right now? And it may be that in that moment tears just come forward, right? It may be that laughter comes forward. It's not always through tears that this happens. Laughter is as powerful, if not more so. And that's why sharing stories about our loved one is so important, because when we share stories, it's inevitable that we get to a place of lightness with our loved ones. And that's what the holiday provides. It's this golden opportunity. And if we're all dancing around it and pretending it's not happening, that's a whole different experience, right? So we want to be brave and we want to be curious and we want to be willing to speak our truth, right? And we want to say to our family members, I'm hoping that you can join me on this journey, and I'll honor you if you can't. And that's more of what we spoke about on Monday. So if you haven't heard that recording, you might want to go back and listen to the Monday recording because that's very specific to relatives, right? And how do we deal with it? Now, the other question that came through that I want to make sure that I answer is I was asked about if the grief is really, really fresh and I just can't even imagine going there. Like I want it to be January already. I can't imagine going through the holidays. It's too overwhelming. It's too much. Here's the thing. We need to be gentle with ourselves, and we're going to talk more about this on Friday because Friday's all about gentleness in the holiday. Um, we want to make sure that we do only what we're capable of doing. And sometimes when the grief is really, really fresh and everything is just so overwhelming, and all we want to do is ignore that it's happening, we need to be willing to give ourselves permission to take this holiday off. It's okay. It's okay to take a year off of the holidays if that's what's feeling true for you. What I would ask you to do if this is you that I'm speaking to, if this is what's true for you, what I'm going to ask you to do is take the holidays off and give yourself permission to take the holidays off and be willing to be present with yourself throughout it all. And again, we'll talk more about how you go gently with yourself through the holidays on Friday. Converting grief to mourning, it's a minute by minute sometimes, it's an hour by hour sometimes, and sometimes, we go by a week and then we step back in, right? It's a commitment on our part to allow the grief journey to work through us so that we're not getting stuck in the moments of grief. We're not getting stuck in the emotions or in the thought patterns. We're allowing ourselves to move through it with ease and grace. And so, most of you know I've written a book, Healthy Mourning, Happy Loving. The subtitle on it is 52 Ways to Convert Your Grief to Mourning with Ease and Grace. Because I really, really wanted to explore this idea of how do we do this? How do we convert our grief to mourning? How do we stay present to it without overwhelming ourselves with it? a year ago this coming Friday is when the book was released. And it's very funny that it was, and then I realized 52 ways. Well, that's kind of one a week. There are 52 weeks in a year. And so I devoted 2020 to being an exploration of those methodologies and how, what did I write? Most writers will tell you after they publish the book, then they get kind of curious about, so what is it that I actually wrote? And so this year has been an exploration. And Healthy Morning 2020, some of you are with me now, some of you who have been with me since the very beginning. Um, it's been quite a journey. And it's leading us into what we're going to be doing for 2021, which is we're going to be grouping the conversion techniques into very specific things. So in January, we're going to be talking about tools and techniques so that we get our toolbox together for walking the journey. And in February, we're going to be talking about the physical symptoms of grief and how do you convert physical symptoms of grief into mourning? Because when the body's carrying it, it can be very heavy and it can really weigh us down. By the time we get into March, we're going to be talking about the mental symptoms of grief, the confusion, and how do we convert what's going on mentally for us so that we're listening to all of these cues. Every symptom is asking you to slow down. Every symptom is asking you to be present with your grief. And so, if you are committed to walking through your grief journey, if you're committed to taking the year to really do it, then I ask you to find ways to be supported in that journey. Most wisdom traditions worldwide will say it's the first year. But what I'm going to say to you is it's the year after your willingness to turn in and lean on your grief versus leaning away from your grief. But if a year is too much to even think about, because nobody's wanting to ever pressure someone who's grieving, you know the pathway that's right for you on your grief journey. And that's the thing in the holidays is to remember that you know your grief journey better than anybody. You know what your grief needs. And it's about us being responsible to and for our own grief journey. And so the willingness to be there for ourselves, again, that's pretty much the topic on Friday. The willingness to be there for ourselves and how to be there for ourselves in a really gentle and loving way. If you're wanting support on that, I want to let you know that we are doing special support during the month of December because I recognize the holidays are really challenging. And because I wasn't thinking about the book in terms of, okay, so this part of the book needs to be holidays, the holiday stuff got kind of put in here, there, and everywhere. So, what I did was I pulled together 4 techniques that are holiday specific. And for those people who are already in Healthy Morning 2020, you know you're going to get Healthy Morning 2020, and we're going to finish out the year with the book. And we're also going to do this added holiday, 4 weeks of holiday. So the way the program works is once a week we get on together and I read from the book and I tell stories about how these ideas came to me and then we brainstorm together. How can we step into this week using this conversion technique? So through the month of December, we're going to be talking about conversion techniques that are very specific to the holidays and how do we use what's coming up for the holidays now, whether it's cooking, whether it's writing cards, whatever it is, how do we use this as a conversion technique and how do we stay present in our grief journey through the holidays? That's the opportunity that's open to us here. Okay. Now, this is a monthly subscription program, and I do that specifically because you're in your grief journey. You know what you need, you know the support you need. And so you're in it for the time period that you need it. And we welcome you with open arms. And because of the people, some of you are on with me live right now, because of the people who said to me, you know what? I would really like you to extend the special offer because I was doing it last week and they are the ones who said, let's extend it one more week. Let's take it through the holidays. And I agree with them because what a great way to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of the book. What a great way to celebrate that we're moving through this year of 2020 and all of the challenges that it's brought. So we're going to hold the $49 US a month price. And that's important because literally on Saturday, it's going up to $149 US a month. And here's the thing For anybody who comes in before Friday, that $49 a month is grandfathered. So next year's program, which is $149 a month, you're going to be grandfathered in, and your monthly payments will continue to be only 49 US dollars a month. So if this feels true for you, I invite you to come in and join us. I'm going to put a link to the program in the description box here, so you can just click on the link and we can get started right away. I want to make sure that together we know that there's support, that we don't need to walk this alone. Some people feel very isolated and alone in their family. They feel like they're the only ones who are willing to be present to what's going on. And if that's you, there's a way even to work with and through that. And I would love to share all of that with you. So, to all of you who are here live, thank you, thank you, thank you. Lovely to see you here. And I look forward to being with you here again on Friday. Again, if you've got questions that you're wanting me to answer on Friday, just put a note in the comments section or send me a direct message. I'm always happy to hear what your questions are and to answer them for you. Much love to you, to those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow. Many, many blessings. I hope that you find health and happiness at your Thanksgiving table, and that you're open to anything that unfolds as you celebrate that which you have to be grateful for, because we do all have an awful lot to be grateful for. Much love to you. Namaste.